Hey friends, Mario Cavallo here. Wow, it's an incredible evening for so many people across the world, especially here in China, and I want to share a 5-point message of hope with all of you right now, rooted in the wonderful news that Meng Wanzhou is back home in China uh, after 3 years. What is it, 1,029 days, I think, she set her feet on her home country's soil, her motherland soil. That's amazing. Um, and it's the fifth of 5 things that have happened this month that make me feel hopeful that the world can start to get better now. There's a couple things happening which, well, there's plenty of things happening which still need to improve, but I haven't seen a shift in the tide like this, and I want to share with you what those things are, my impressions of those things with you as we continue wondering about and worrying about this Zhongmei Guanxi situation, this China-U.S. relations. Zhongmei, Zhongguo, Meiguo, Guanxi means China, United States relations, which is the crux of the most important geopolitical relationship on planet Earth. Okay, because China is rising up, and now that's a threat to the United States' position as the superpower of the world for the past century. But at the same time, the United States has not earned has lost respect all across the world for being an imperialist, warmongering, political sanctioning bully. And that's how they've gotten things done in the last 70 years since the Korean War. And it's got to stop. So we need to see indications that it is coming to an end, and that United States leadership, and that's a broad word, all of the people who would be regarded as people of influence in the United States leadership, are key people who are seeing the light of how things need to be and what needs to stop happening. So what are the 5 things which want me to lead you all tonight on this message of hope? Number 1, the United States pulled out of Afghanistan. And that was finally, $2 trillion or whatever who cares? I don't know, 900 billion, 2 trillion, 30 million, 300 million a day. I don't know, whatever the number is, what a disaster. And in the age of social media now has enabled the world to put a light on anything that's going wrong. Just shine a light down on anything that's going wrong in the world. You can't get away with craziness anymore because the whole world is watching. That's the nature of social media now. You just can't get away with what you used to be able to get away with. That applies to individual people, and that applies to countries. And I'm thinking again of the United States. So, the waste, the deaths, especially the deaths of the innocent civilians, I mean, it's just disgusting. It's horrifying stuff. And again, it goes back for 70 years, and the world is just enough is enough. It's like the Vietnam protests, the Vietnam War protests, right? Jane Fonda up on the tank. They were right. Millions of people massacred, millions of innocent civilians, and also hundreds of thousands of military, however many, dead. For what? For what? There was zero purpose and gain from the Vietnam War, from the Korean War. None whatsoever. Okay? And all the wars, the smaller war movements that have happened since then in various Middle Eastern and Latin American countries. And then, of course, the Iraq War based on a lie. All of it finally, the Afghanistan situation made everybody see, and now the American government and military can be so embarrassed and shamed, heaps of Catholic guilt coals upon their heads, that they can be shamed into being like, well, we ought not to do this again. And that's the hope that we want and believe and want to see. So that's number 1, the Afghanistan situation. That, we'll continue to see a reduction in these war actions, these covert actions, these drone strikes, um, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and over the years, millions of innocent people who have been killed, if not had their lives just completely ruined and devastated, and they're now refugees with nowhere to go. So item number one, I'm so hopeful that this imperialist warmongering machine is going to reduce. Should I use the word stop? Reduce, please, right? Okay, so that's item number one. Item number two was such an unusual thing, such a shocking thing, and I'm glad to see it, and it's indicative, okay, of a movement in the right direction, and that is, you know, it was the Trump administration that started hating China, and they did that as a strategy, a political strategy, and the Republicans had released a report saying, here's your political strategy. If you want to win the election, we need to blame China for this and this and this. It was a strategy, folks. It had nothing to do with the truth. And then along came the pandemic and made it even worse. And we're going to blame China. And then the right-wing media joined in on this in the middle of March, and they all declared China the enemy. So I used to watch some right-wing media, Laura Ingraham, Judge Jeanine, and Tucker Carlson, and they all went negative against China, and I was just disgusted by how ridiculous what they had done was. So I stopped watching them all. And then, just this month, Tucker Carlson comes on and praises China for reining in the wealthy, the insanity of corrupt capitalism that has destroyed America and made the rich rich. You got guys like Bezos and Dorsey and Zuckerberg and others worth hundreds of billions of dollars while the society is suffering. I mean, this is absurd. Okay, no obligation to society. Tucker Carlson praised the Xi Jinping administration for reining in the wealthy and saying, hey, you can't become that wealthy without making sure that society is okay too. And Xi called for common prosperity. Xi then called for reining in the companies and the wealthy, Wall Street. Then Xi called in for protecting the workers, Didi, Meituan, saying, hey, you can't treat your workers like slaves. You got to protect the workers. You got to give them a better opportunity to have a good life and pay them well if you're a billionaire. This is ridiculous. You got to pay up. That's what she said. Fine. Good. Tucker Carlson's like, yeah. Everything the United States government isn't doing. Oh, wait a minute. China's doing it. I mean, this was shocking to hear it even referred to. I'm not saying that Tucker Carlson is 100% convert now, but even the fact that he thought of it and put it on his show as a segment was shocking and amazing. So it's indicative of the shift in the right direction. And the third thing, of course, the crackdown on the education sector, which is a focus on what? Family, households, families, parents, and children's daily lives. Government caring about that and getting involved in that. Now, I understand back in America, the government is not supposed to get involved in that. But if the society itself won't take care of those things, the government has to step in. Because you can't just let people run amok. If capitalism isn't going to serve everyone and democracy isn't going to serve everyone, which it doesn't anymore in America, then the government has to step in. So the capitalism and the democracy is fake, is false, is empty, and that's what it is, So here in China, the government's like, oh, we're not going to allow you to do that. The family households and the education for the children needs to be balanced. Here's how we say it needs to be, and it's common sense. So promoting that, and then the fourth part, and then was including the crackdown on gaming. Crack down on the gaming industry. We cannot and will not allow your children to have zombie brain. And if you as parents aren't disciplined enough to make sure that that doesn't happen, we're the government. We're going to step in and make it the law. Well, so that's communism. No, folks, it's not communism. It's good governance. That's what it is. It's good governance. And there's lots of laws in your country that you think isn't communist or socialist or democracy. It doesn't matter. Does your country have laws to protect children? Are 12-year-olds allowed to drink alcohol? No. Are they allowed to smoke? No. Are they allowed to watch violence on TV? Do you have movies with ratings? PG, R, X? You know, do you hear what I'm saying? So you got all kinds of rules and laws in schools, in your school system in America. It has nothing to do with whether it's a democracy or a socialist or a communist country. Those are all just terms to confuse you, okay? What I care about is good governance. Is the government doing a good job to take care of the society and manage the society? I don't care at all. I don't think at all about the fact that the Chinese government doesn't have voting. It makes no difference to me whatsoever. Because the United States government has voting, but it's a horrible government. It isn't taking care of the country. And you know that and I know that. The American government is taking care of the wealthy and not taking care of the country. And we know that. And it doesn't matter whether the Republicans are in the office, in charge, majority, or whether the Democrats are. That just makes no difference whatsoever. The government is not doing its job. So I don't care about voting at all. I care about good governance and whether the government is doing its job, and it's not. And I never think about the fact that there's no voting here in China. I just love the fact that the government is doing a good job. Well, it makes sense. And don't you hate the fact that your government isn't doing a good job, and don't you know that the fact that you can vote doesn't help at all? Sorry, right? It's no good, right? So it's not about the government system. It's about whether there's good governance, which means leadership, people making decisions, doing their jobs like responsible adults who are put in position to do their jobs, whether put there, hired there, or voted in. Do your job, and you either are or you aren't. The Chinese government is, overall, doing its job extremely well. So it's saying, hey, we've got rules. Your kids can't smoke. Well, that's a good one. Everybody agrees. Every other country has the same rule. Kids can't smoke. Kids can't drink. Kids can't watch violence, be exposed to things in school. There's how they have to behave, including games. They're not allowed to watch games. Only 4 hours per week. Okay, these are all the things that kids can't do. Thank you. So Tucker Carlson praised all these things about China, and it's finally, Can you imagine the back conversations? Can you imagine the back door, the closed door private conversations? It's like, look, the Chinese government's doing things right. You can't argue with that. So their attack on China is losing its luster, and they know they're embarrassing themselves if they try to continue attacking China. So we see them backing off. We see the shift in the wind. Tucker Carlson, that's item number 2. Item number 3, Biden and Xi having a phone call sounded pretty good. Seems like it's Biden signaling that even though there's a bunch of hawks and idiots like Trump, Steve Bannon, and that Gu guy, that Chinese guy who's hanging out on the yacht with Steve Bannon. What the heck is his name? I can't remember. Victor or Simon Gu. What was this idiot, this Chinese guy who's whipping up trouble, and he's Steve Bannon's buddy. And then Ted Cruz and Tom Cotton and Marjorie, what her name is, and all these really stupid congressmen and senators who are still very hawkish toward China. But you got Biden there talking to Xi, and his language and the language of these conversations is indicative of realizing again that going after China and attacking China is having the opposite effect, and it's not a good idea. All these attacks on China, all of them, the ridiculous allegations about the South China Sea, Hong Kong, this Uyghur Xinjiang genocide and forced labor accusations, which are entirely like a bad joke, like this horrible joke, terrible, disgraceful. um, and the Huawei Meng Wanzhou situation, all these things, the more you've done to attack China with these false allegations and lies, which are embarrassing and causes China to just think you're an idiot, and you are for doing that, and it just has brought the Chinese people together and brought them together with their country, and that's the truth. So it's had the opposite effect. China, China gave you the model of the world to identify, control, identify, yeah, control, defeat, and manage the pandemic. Even the Delta variant in China is being managed. Can you believe it? Every time there's a Delta outbreak, slam. There's a local one now in Harbin, 30 cases. There was 2 weeks ago in Fujian. The Fujian one's under control now. And then there was a breakout in Harbin. And they clamped down on it hard. Everybody sacrifices. Go home, quarantine. Oh, it's inconvenient. Yeah, well, but everybody in the country is safe. Do you understand? You got to do your part for the community. So it's amazing. China gave the model to the world of how to successfully handle this virus for however as long as is necessary, because life here in China is normal. You can't imagine what it feels like to not worry about the virus, you know? So uh, the Biden-Xi phone call seems like a step in the right direction, along with item number 4. And item number 4 was Biden's speech at the UN Assembly, which again did not directly attack China. And of course, all of the people that hate Biden, say that he's a disgrace and this and that. And then when the Republicans in office, they say everybody says he's a disgrace. So again, the political situation in America is weak. There's nothing to respect and appreciate there. Nothing. It's disgraceful. And they still just won't fix it. But we got the Biden UN speech, the 4th item. Good. Good to see and hear what we didn't see and what we didn't hear. More of this rhetoric against China, the rhetorical stuff, where China was not mentioned. And she didn't mention America. Well, Chinese policy never mentions other countries. It's always focused on China. And that's what American policy needs to be. It needs to be focused on America. So Biden's speech at the UN was a nice step in the right direction to add to my message of hope. Before I mention the 5th item, and you already know what it is, the Meng Wanzhou release, let me say that this AUKUS deal was a step in the wrong direction. And frankly, I'm going to tell you 2 things right now. 1, it was political maneuvering stupidity. 2, it put the United States, UK, and Australia together. You'll notice Europe's not part of it. So they've isolated themselves from Europe. And they've also isolated themselves from Southeast Asia, who don't support any of this. So for those reasons, I'm telling you, this political maneuvering, this politically diplomatic stupidity that just occurred with the announcement of AUKUS will disintegrate and blow in the wind like sand, like dust. The U.S. nuclear submarines, and pissed off France in the process. The U.S. submarines to Australia will never be delivered. The deal will never go through. It was a political maneuver. It was a stupid thing to announce. It isn't going to happen. Now mark my words. Check back with me in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. I know I'm right. I'm never wrong about these things. I live in China for 22 years. I'm not a deep analytical guy. I'm the mega guy. I go and I look at and pull together all the analytical that other people do, and then I tell you what I know is happening and is going to happen. And for 22 years on China, I've never been wrong, and I'm not going to be wrong. So that's how I feel about my position of what I'm sharing with you. I know I'm right. So those nuclear submarines are not going to get delivered. They'll be uh, due to the shift and unforeseen circumstances, blah blah blah. And then they start shifting and changing what they said, and then they don't do it, and they make reasons, and they know how to spin everything to look good and sound good no matter what. And in the end, that's what will happen. Okay, I'm very confident when I tell you that. So there will be no nuclear submarines for Australia. So AUKUS was a bad move. And then the Quad meeting, well, it just happened. So let's see whether or not, let's see what kind of language comes out of the Quad meeting. Again, the problem is it's the hawks who are whipping up war business. Because folks, remember, the war machine makes money. That's what Afghanistan was all about. It made huge amounts of money for Boeing and Northrop and all the other defense contractors and private contractors. It became an economy. The economy of the war, the military economy, you with me? Which existed in Afghanistan, like you could count the GDP of it. That's what it was. It wasn't about saving anybody. Again, disgusting. And hopefully the war machine has to somehow get shut off. The American war machine has to get shut off. I mean, what do you think they're doing with all these ships? And why do you think they're selling nuclear submarines? To make money. I mean, somebody's building these weapons and somebody's buying them, and you make money, and you need the money. I mean, America's broke. They need the money. But hopefully the warmongering is going to stop. So that's item number 4. The Biden UN Assembly speech was item number 4. And I mentioned these couple of items, this AUKUS and Quad thing, before I go to item number 5 in my message of hope. So the AUKUS thing will fade away. And then also this Quad, let's see what the Quad messaging is going to be over the next few days. And finally, we're on to item number 5 in my message of hope, which is obvious, and it's what happened today, which was amazing. Meng Wanzhou being released, and also Spavor and Kovrig being released, which I'll talk about in a moment. But Meng Wanzhou being released, again, similar to the Afghanistan situation with Meng Wanzhou being released, is because the United States was toast in that thing. I mean, their case was empty. And they had no way to move forward with extraditing her in a trial in the United States. They had absolutely no way to move forward and win on that, because HSBC had released the documents via the Hong Kong court showing that the original accusation, the original charges by the United States, was that Meng Wanzhou defrauded their party, the HSBC Bank, by withholding this information. Period. That's it. That was the charge. Okay? And HSBC released the email documents showing, no, Meng obviously didn't hide that from us. We knew all about it. There's the proof. It's in our record. It's a record of emails. We knew that there was a subsidiary in Iran. So she wasn't hiding that from us. And that was the charge. You understand me? That was the charge. That she was hiding that from HSBC, defrauding them. There was no defrauding at all. The case is blown up. Toast. Gone. Okay? So in addition to which, she was originally detained illegally based on U.S. sanctions, which is a unilateral bullying. That's bullying. That's just bullying. There's no law of U.S. sanctions. They decide to do it, and we're bigger than you. We got a bigger stick, so that's the law. Ridiculous. So, as bad as the Afghanistan situation, though not $2 trillion and not 1 million deaths, thank God for that, huh? So, the U.S. was embarrassed, needed to let it go. A DPA was the legal, technical way where they could make a deal and let it go. And I guess we can assume that during the Biden-Xi phone call, these things were discussed, including kind of a hint that if we release Meng Wanzhou, then, as an act of goodwill, as part of the deal, China will release the two convicted spies, Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig. And yes, you need to notice the way I am referring to them very specifically, because they were not hostages. So we have hope. 5 items, an amazing thing that happened here to teach America lessons every step of the way. This is the kind of thing that they can't do anymore. And the world of social media is shining these spotlights down on anything that anybody does wrong. Just makes it very difficult for you to do these things and not embarrass yourself. And as I said during my speech at the 7th annual CCG China and Globalization Think Tank Forum in Beijing last month, this is like heaping piles of coals on their Catholic guilt, heaping piles of hot burning coals on their heads to shame them into not doing it again, because they look like such fools, and they just cause themselves to lose face even worse. So these are the 5 items, the message of hope that I have, that there's a shift in the wind with the American way, that the imperialist, warmongering way, the bullying sanctions way, all of these ridiculous things that they've been doing ever since, and it began with the Korean War 70 years ago, 7 decades ago, that these things can come to an end, that America's got to change, is recognizing it, that it's making these moves. These are 5 big things that happened this month. And that's my message of hope to all of you. Don't let the Spavor and Kovrig situation confuse you. There's a very clear article at the Canada Files. Just look it up, thecanadafiles.com. There's a very clear article there showing how Spavor and Kovrig were involved with ICG, the International Crisis Group, which is an NGO that's very much involved in violent regime change, borderline terrorist activities all over the world. I mean, they specialize in supporting regime change, which is ugly stuff. And they were working with, and Kovrig working directly for the ICG, and Spavor taking photos of Chinese military vehicles, and the things that he should not be taking photos of at all, and passing them to that organization, whose activities are the destabilization and regime changes of countries. I mean, including violence and death. That doesn't sound like a couple of innocent guys to me. There were a threat to national security via North Korea. There was already sanctions against doing business in North Korea, so why wasn't Michael Spavor immediately arrested and extradited by the United States or Canada for doing business in North Korea, which he was doing? So there was plenty of reason, and go read the article yourself, go read that report yourself. There was plenty of reason for China to arrest and find them guilty. Were they also used as pawns in the situation? Yes. I guess you have to conclude that they were, but they were guilty. So in their case, they should be thankful for getting an early release. So that's an act of goodwill on China's part. Meng Wanzhou, she didn't do anything wrong. So, she should be able to go back and sue them, right? But, well, that's another story. Again, you see what's happening. The point of this video is the message of hope that these kinds of things are looking good, that they're stopping. It's a huge, the 5th item on my list is huge. The release of Meng Wanzhou and the release of Spavor and Kovrig. Good, let them go. Done. Let's be done with these things. Happy for them too. Okay? This is huge. This is not just another item on Drudge Report. Meng Wanzhou arriving back home was a thing that was the line in the sand for China. That there's no discussions or negotiations with us about anything until Meng is released, because you bastards shouldn't have retained her in the first place. And it's the same with Taiwan, by the way, if you're confused about that. I don't know why anyone thinks Taiwan is independent as a country. I realize it has some independent things that it does. It does. But it's not a country. I don't know why people keep trying to, I mean, it's like in your fantasy land, you think it's a country. Okay. Taiwan's own constitution doesn't call it a country. Taiwan's, let me repeat what I just said. Taiwan's own government, its own, which, hey, I live in a province, and my province has its own government. So Taiwan is a province. But it's a little different as a province. It's a special place. It has more independence. You know, like Puerto Rico is sort of, it's part of America, but it's not a state. You know, Taiwan's different. Hong Kong's different. Okay. You know, the Tibet region is different. The Xinjiang region is different. But they're all part of China. So Taiwan has a constitution that refers to it as part of China. Its own constitution. No one's changed it. You know, you have to go in and call a government assembly meeting and they all have to ratify it, you know, or whatever. No one's done that. Taiwan's, I'm going to repeat it one more time. Taiwan's own constitution refers to it not as a country, refers to it as part of China. Okay, that's its own constitution under its current government. What do you want from me? You know, so, folks, that's it. God bless you all, and God bless Meng Wanzhou and her family, and Huawei, all the people that have been through hell because of that situation, and the two Michaels as well. Whatever they did wrong, hey, they're released. Good for them. Everybody's got to be wise and be safe in this life and keep the information and things that are happening very, very straight. It's my pleasure to share with you these 5 points which lead me to believe there's hope now. I'm seeing a shift in the wind, these 5 things that have occurred recently within the month, that there's a recognition by enough of the powerful decision makers in America to say, yeah, we need to stop acting like horses' asses here. Okay, we can't do it in this global world. We're going to destroy the whole world if we continue acting this way. Again, along that line, the most recent thing, AUKUS, was this political stupidity, and that will fade away into fairy dust land like it should, and we'll see what's going on in coming days. Thanks very much for joining me. Let me also quickly make one more announcement about my channel. I'm going to be doing up my rebranding, which is not for business purposes, but a reflection of who I am as a person, the things that are matter to me, the things that I care about, including the areas of expertise that I have in the world and the areas of interest that I have in the world. So it's going to be more of Mr. Ma's adventures. And I'm Mr. Ma. Mario as my English name and Ma Yijun as my Chinese name. And in the middle is Mr. Ma. That's how everybody that's how everybody in China easily knows me, and even in the West. So I'm going to have fun with Mr. Ma's adventures rebranding of my channel, and then more clearly, going to be more clearly organized in the videos and the titles and the names of the videos, which reflect my interests and areas of expertise, which I share with you. So I hope all of you will continue to appreciate that, and please do subscribe and share the work that I'm doing on my channel. I really appreciate it. It's part of my overall work, which is primarily my work with national media and other organizations here in China, like Huawei, on their thought leadership platform, and with the Center for China and Globalization. And these are just great things that I feel very fortunate to be involved in. From here in Shenyang, the capital of Liaoning Province, northeast China, my wife's hometown, where I'm the blessed, happy, wonderful guy with the beautiful family. I wish all of you to be blessed as well. Be safe, be wise, talk to you soon, take care, and that's the end of this video. See you later, bye.